digital transformation means something different to each one of us. This is the sort of thing that used to only be for startups are now enterprise scale. We've been transforming decades and centuries. That's what we do. We change.
Welcome to Beyond Bosch. I'm Jessica Dahl. Today we have Davie Sweis, Vice President of the Global Digital Business Unit here at Bosch in North America. Davie, thank you so much for coming.
Jessica, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
And you're out of our Mount Prospect office?
I am near Chicago.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So Davie, thanks so much for joining us. I know you have quite the job.
Yeah, lots of fun.
Lots of fun, and the topic of digital transformation. And
Yes.
what does that mean?
That's a really great first question because digital transformation is one of those buzzwords that everyone's using nowadays.
Yeah.
So it means nothing and everything to everyone and to no one, I guess. So it really talks about what we are doing as an organization in these transformational times with using digital activities, digital services, digital products, digital business models. So what we see is a lot of organizations really taking on software and the development of software with hardware and services and trying to make completely new businesses from that. And so where you have traditional businesses like manufacturing or healthcare, now you have these companies that are transforming with digital topics, digital services. And I think that really becomes something unique for everyone. So if I'm sitting in a manufacturing company, as we are, versus if you're sitting in an agriculture company, or if you're sitting in another kind of, healthcare company, digital transformation means something different to each one of us. But at the core of it, it's about really using those digital services, digital products, or run those services around creating new business models around that.
Sure.
It's very unique to each and every one of us. And what I really believe is that if we're able as an organization to do these sort of things like empowering your employees, engaging your customers, getting a top-down vision and a bottom-up passion, then at the end it's not just a transformation, it really feels like teamwork. And if we're able to accomplish that, then at the end of the day it doesn't matter what we call it, right? It could be called, chicken soup, right? Because there will be another transformation that comes along.
Yep. Today
it's digital transformation. Tomorrow will be, anything else. And what's important is what's our key values? What are the things that we're really trying to take away from it? And hopefully at the end of the day, we're having fun.
That makes sense. And I know I read in one of your articles talking about, like, for example, at a bank, that may mean incorporating AI, into your teller and things like that versus... I think do you have another example? So,
the big topic is IoT, right? So Internet of Things. So being able to connect machine to machine, where in the past you didn't have that capability. Nowadays we have the server, we have the infrastructure, we have the software to be able to do things like that. And like you said, the bank, you can use AI, there's automation, there's robotics, there's machine learning. There's a lot of different technologies that are now really coming of age that allows businesses to begin that transformation.
So when you say, transformation, obviously we're talking about change.
Yeah.
And, digital is not necessarily new.
Right.
But I think at the rapid rate we're going and incorporating it into our businesses is quite intense. And what does that look like? So we're changing constantly. How does that look for most businesses right now?
Well, it's scary for most businesses, right? I think if you as an organization are still trying to figure out what digital transformation means, you're a little late to the game. You have to already be on that journey. And it's really important, and I want to make sure that I make it very clear that there's two parts of digital transformation. There's the idea first of digital. So, and this is what we talk about, the competencies around digital, the technology around digital, and also even the processes around digital. So that's one aspect. But at the end, it's transformation. And so we've been transforming, decades and centuries. We have been transforming. That's what we do. We change. And the uniqueness about this is that it's just a transformation dealing with digital. And so it's really important because that helps us already get kickstarted, because when you explain it to say that it's a normal transformation is just about how we uniquely deal with digital, then all of a sudden people can say, okay, well, that makes a little bit more sense.
Yep.
And so we have change agents in our organization. We have methodologies and processes to deal with transformation. So it's really important for an organization to identify that, to say, okay, this is a transformation. Let me not be crazy about it. Let me just think about it as a transformation. And then bring the people in that help with transformation using the tools. I know at Bosch we use AdCar, for example, to deal with change. That's a basic one. It has nothing to do with digital.
Yeah.
It has everything to do with transformation and change. And then you kind of take on an additional piece on top of that to say, okay, now let's add what's unique about this transformation. Well, the uniqueness is around how we deal with digitalization of our environments. And and so I think it's really important kind of to specify it that way. For me, it simplifies it.
Yeah.
And it's much easier to explain than just to say, okay, what's digital transformation? So
for sure, that helped me feel already like, okay.
It's just two words, right? And if you break them down into each word, then it makes it a little bit easier to understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I like what you said. We've been changing.
Yeah.
We know how to do this, and utilize what we have.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, obviously, it's changing at a rapid rate. What are some key measures of success? Like, how do we make sure that we are keeping up? Like you said, some people are, if you're trying to figure it out, you're late,
Yeah. To measure is always the hard part, right? It's to try to figure out how you don't know if you're successful unless you can measure it, right? That's a really key piece. And so at least the way that I approach it and the way I look at it is that there's three key measurements. The first of it is about competencies. You can say it's also about the people. It's about what skills, competencies are required in this digital age. So what's important? And it's not just about hiring and finding developers, software developers. That's for sure a very important piece. But it's also trying to find people who really understand UX, who really understand digital business models around how we now deal with subscriptions, how we create new opportunities with what skill sets they need around that. So I need to understand how financing as it deals with, micro processing. So these sort of things. So the idea would be competencies. What do we have today? What is our current competency list within the organization today? What is our target? And then how do we get there, right? And and then all of a sudden you fall back into a change program, right?
Yeah.
It becomes very easy. So understanding competencies, that's one measure of success to understand where we're going. I think you can find a lot of different articles, a lot of different studies around what are the key competencies for the digital world. The second aspect is technology. So it's a very important one. You can also find a lot of articles and studies around what are the digital technologies that are out there. The companies that are most successful in the digital transformation are ones that use these certain technologies, like AI, robotics, mobile development, things like that. And so those are technologies that we have to understand what your organization, our organization is doing. So what's the current state, and what is our target state?
Right.
And then figure out if there's a gap, how do we fill that gap?
Sure.
And then lastly is a little bit more complex, but it deals with processes. We have to understand and adapt both internal and external processes to accommodate these digital activities. So for example, basic one is CRM, right? This is one that companies have been dealing with for, decades. But how do we create a digital environment to automate and to support our internal processes? How do we give the salespeople the right tools at the right time and the right data at the right time? How do we use AI to be able to incorporate new HR processes? So that's around the internal. And then if you think about the external, how do we engage our customers more digitally? How do we give them the tools to work with us more effectively? And again, thinking about what are the technology pieces that we need. So is it automation? Automation is such a big topic by itself. Sure. We have AI as a big topic, right? So every product by 2025 will either have AI in it or be developed with using AI. This is a big transformation. We don't, even though we don't say that this is part of digital transformation, it for sure is one of those key elements for success for us. So if we take those three areas, competencies, technology, and processes, we kind of get a current state, we get a target state, and figure out how we fill that gap. For me, that's how we start to measure and how we start to track this and make it much more tangible for us.
Sure. That has to be exciting and challenging.
Yes.
Do you enjoy what you're doing?
It's funny because that's just one part of my job. So I have many roles and many
Sure.
hats in this organization, and that is something that I find that is a big gap at the moment. So I see that as a big question.
Hmm.
We as an organization have come a long way,
Yeah.
and I believe there's a lot of opportunity for us to, if we can just figure out how to put it down on paper and say this is what we've done,
Mm-hmm.
and to quantify it, I think we'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
And that's half the battle, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
like
I
that.
think
Yeah.
that's that age-old saying, right?
Yeah.
It's we don't know how much we don't know.
Yeah.
So, how did you get into this? What's your background?
So I have a computer science degree.
Okay.
So I have a bachelor's and a master's in computer science.
Nice.
So I've always thought that I would grow up working in a dark room with a hoodie on and a pair of headphones and just developing and coding. Right.
Well,
That
we're
was,
making one of your dreams come true right now.
right.
with
That's
these
yeah. So
headphones on.
yeah. This is kind of like how I was dreaming it. And just creating. Right. That
Yeah.
was kind of my target. And somehow something went. I wouldn't say awry, but things changed.
Sure.
Things don't always go as planned.
Transformed.
Yeah. And I found myself kind of put into a leadership position, driving really a great group of talented people to do what I wanted to do, right? So these people that are creating. And what I realize is that as we continue to focus on like just getting things done, just to execute, I found that we were always put in positions, or I was always put in positions that allowed me to do that kind of on the front end of things. And so I've always kind of rode this digital wave. So I was at a school, I was working for a number of different consulting companies doing architecture, web,
Okay.
and always kind of working in there. And then when I joined Bosch, following that path.
Sure.
And as I've been doing it for decades now, and now I'm realizing that this is the sort of thing, the transformation that used to only be for startups
Sure.
a decade ago are now enterprise scale.
Wow.
And I think there's a big need for that. And so
That's cool.
it's worked out. So I really enjoy what I do.
Yeah.
And I have a really great team that is building a lot of these digital topics and digital activities and helping, I think, transform this organization as a whole and making impact.
Yeah. And you brought up developers a little bit ago and how that's a big topic on its own,
Yeah. Mhm.
obviously. I mean, I hear quite a bit about it. I'm
Mhm.
not in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think, I have young kids and I'm always thinking about what to encourage them into or at least step into, and my son who's not even 8, he's taking like robot classes
That's awesome.
and he's learning how to code things and,
great.
everything's connected. Their Lego kits are connected
Yeah.
to a phone and it's crazy to me, but it's also like pretty exciting.
Yeah.
What would you say like is something that you would tell, an 8-year-old about what's important to like kind of be learning about and what the future may look like for them?
So I have 2 daughters.
Okay.
They're 14 and 15 at the moment.
Okay.
So almost 16, which is scary, I think, in the next couple months. And when my daughter was around 8, 9, my younger daughter, not my older daughter, my younger one was really interested in development and coding. And I always thought, okay, I'm really going to start getting her into development. And, and it's really interesting because I didn't know what to tell her. Like I didn't know how to bring them up. What I realized is that the key pieces or the key trait of a good developer is someone who can solve problems, who can take large complex problems and to break them into small pieces.
Yeah.
And I think that basic principle is very important. And that's something you can teach in a number of different ways. The idea of taking big problems, breaking them into small ones. All coding is just now you're formatting that and putting in syntax and telling a computer how to now repeat that same function or same concept. And my daughter loved to solve problems. I mean, that's the thing. So then it starts. You can put things, and there's so many great little websites and apps that allow them to create games and small problems. Take a big problem and break it. And if you look at the patterns, that's exactly what's happening in the background. I had a chance to take my daughter to South by Southwest.
Oh,
so
cool.
she was there, and it was really great because it was a whole STEM thing. And
Oh, sure.
so how do you get kids involved? I mean, they really have to want to do it. So I tried to get my older daughter involved. She won't have anything to do with it.
She's like,
so
no.
it's really about
Yeah.
that idea of focusing on breaking larger things into smaller ones, logically approaching problems, and then just introduce coding. I don't think there's not an age that it's a good time to do that. So at 10, I think I remember my daughter was opening up PHP, which is a programming language.
Oh my gosh.
She was opening up an IDE, so a program to start writing PHP. And I remember I came home one day and she started asking me about a function, about how to write this function, and when the semicolon, when I should use it, I'm like, oh my god, a tear came down my face.
I'm
like, yeah.
And yeah, it's and that's, I mean, that's our next workforce is coming up,
Yeah.
like, so it's interesting to see like what's going on now versus what we feel like. I mean, I'm just amazed how fast everything goes.
Well, my favorite thing to kind of reflect on is back in the 80s and 70s even, developers it's a very uncool thing to be a developer. Right? I mean, I've done a whole presentation on this. It's really great. I mean, there's a lot of insight you can gain from that. I mean, the 70s, 80s, even Hollywood was saying it's not cool to be a developer. Right? I mean, Revenge of the Nerds, those were computer geeks, right?
Good point. Yeah.
So, but now look at it. Today is completely different. I mean, I was walking through my kids in their grade school now, and there were posters of Ashton Kutcher. There was posters of Barack Obama saying, don't just play with your phone, code it, right? So it's changing. It's changing really the perspective, the way that we think about it. It's changing the way that the kids in school are looking at not just development, but the whole STEM program.
Sure.
And that for sure will impact us.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure. So we as an enterprise have to realize that this next generation of students and kids coming will be already far ahead of what we think from a software development where we should be, or even this technology. And we have to understand what they expect. And this is a little bit scary, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so anyways, I'm not sure how that will impact us at the moment, but I know that that's something that's coming that we have to accommodate at some level.
Well, and I know you've talked about whether it was in an article or something before of, this isn't just a top-down approach or a bottom-up approach. And I think that's where that comes into play, That's
right. I mean, I tell a lot of developers in a conference or even one-on-one, you have to step up and you have to help an organization create priorities and create a strategy. So it's not just happening in a corner office somewhere. That's the thing of the past. It's really about bringing ideas that are coming from the workforce, and that workforce today they're digitally native, right? I mean, I don't know that I really like that word, digitally native. But it's true. I mean, you've grown up in it, and even as developers, it's no longer a choice to sit with headphones in a dark corner and just code. You have a responsibility to the organization to bring your ideas and to bring your topics. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to sit in meetings for hours on end, because that's not what developers would like to do. But it's for sure something that you have to step up and be heard and bring your ideas in. And so this is a little bit of I'm trying to motivate people to say, bring your ideas in. Don't just have it a top down. I think there's someone we have to meet in the middle there.
Yeah. And that's interesting too. I'm thinking about just, different types of personalities that if you like to hide in a dark room, you might not be one who likes to talk to a bunch of people about your idea. So there's a transformation in itself, almost like a micro transition, transformation within this bigger topic.
There's definitely room to grow.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we still have to learn how we want to do that. I think, we have to learn how we as developers are to interact with large enterprises, because I mean, there's a real problem. There's not enough developers in the U.S. If we even want to just stick with the U.S., much less the world. There's not enough developers that we can hire. So there has to be a different way of engagement, and there has to be a different way of retaining, not just attracting, but also retaining.
Sure.
And trying to, I mean, everybody wants to be able to make an impact, right? I mean, I don't care who you are. I mean, there's at some level, you get satisfaction from making an impact. So the point is that we have to give opportunities to the workforce to be able to do that, to be able to make an impact. And that means it's not just about waiting for somebody to come to you and ask you for your opinion, but it's also about being proactive and participating into that discussion.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we talked a bit about developers and coding, and obviously I am neither of those things. And, hearing the words digital transformation makes me really focus on the digital. And I know we talked about this, but is it more than just, developing and coding?
So first of all, it's never too late to learn how to code, right? So I put that plug in there.
Yeah.
But it's for sure a bigger topic than just asking the question, what can our developers do for us? And I really mean it. I mean, I think the biggest part we underestimate is the transformation. So the digital topic will for sure come. I mean, developers are for sure there, and we have to give them a vision and a purpose to develop and a purpose to create things. But we cannot underestimate the transformational part of it. And that starts with associates, that starts with leadership. I believe it's really a holistic approach on how we come to really dealing with this digital transformation, and the emphasis becomes on the transformation. So just because you don't develop, don't worry. We for sure need talented people like you, Jessica, in an organization to become digitally transformed at the end of the day.
Right. That's good. So do you have any stories of, or maybe aha moments in your career or personally that you want to share?
Maybe not that I want to share, but I will share. Now you've got me locked in this room.
Yep.
And no, there's one story I'm very fond of. I've told it a number of times. So I mentioned my daughter, Layla. So at the time she was in 3rd grade, and she asked me, Dad, can you come? We bring your parent to school day, right? So the parents have this really great chance to present their work day to a bunch of 3rd graders. I mean, I don't know why that doesn't sound awesome, right? Everyone wants to sign up for something like that. So she was like, hey, I want you to come and present to my class. And I'm like, I don't know what I would do to entertain a bunch of 3rd graders.
Right.
I mean, I was terrified. I mean, I've stood in front of people and presented, and I was never as terrified as standing in front of 3rd graders. Don't ask me why.
I get it.
So, but what I did is I brought some Bosch tchotchkes. So I brought some little things from Bosch, stickers, and there was a thing from Power Tools. It was a little flashlight with a screwdriver on it. I don't know why that made sense for 3rd graders, but
they just like anything. Yeah.
And at the time, I had a pair of Google Glass. So I don't know if you remember it, but it's those really, really cool glasses where you had the little lens on the side, the built-in camera, and it would do like a augmented reality kind of experience. So I brought that in. So what I learned is that I think there was 8 different classes in her 3rd grade class, and somehow I got selected to do all 8 classes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I had 1 hour each, 8 times, 8 hours presenting to 3rd graders. It was wonderful. So, and when I say it's wonderful, I'm actually being sincere, because it turned out to be one of the coolest experiences that I've had. Because what would happen is, I would come into the class with these Google glasses on, and all of a sudden these 3rd graders would look at me like, "Oh my God, what are those?" They were amazement. I had connected the Google Glass via the computer to the projector in the classroom.
Oh my God.
And so if you can imagine, I was looking at the kids through the Google Glass, and the kids were looking at the white screen, the whiteboard of themselves through my Google Glass.
Oh my gosh.
And I've got a picture, and I have to share it with you. I have a picture of the students looking at themselves from my Google Glass. And it would be and the only way I can explain it is that they were looking at the coolest magic trick. I mean, the amazement that came in their eyes from looking just at a basic picture. And throughout that day, I would bring them up, and I would actually code HTML with them. I would be like, hey Johnny, what's your favorite baseball team? And then we would basically construct an HTML page.
Wow.
And I did that 8 times. And I was one of many parents that were there. There were parents that were firefighters. There was police officers. There was doctors with the stethoscopes. There was actually a DJ that brought their DJ table, and they were making music with the kids. And I remember at that evening, after it was all said and done, I was tucking in Layla, and I said, how was it? I mean, how was your day? And she looked at me and she said, Dad, do you know all the kids said that your dad was the coolest one of all of them?
Oh,
and I thought to myself, wow, that's, I mean, better than a DJ, right? I mean, that doesn't, and at that point, I really came to the realization there's really revolution happening with these kids and technology. Mm-hmm. And the kids may not want to love to code but everyone will have a basic idea of how technology works.
Yeah.
It'll be like riding a bike. I mean, it'll be a basic skill that the kids will learn.
Yeah.
And from that will help transform the rest of our world. So I don't know if that's my story of how really I was cooler than a DJ. And I keep telling my daughter that. Don't forget, your dad was cooler than a DJ.
I love it. Yep. Those moments, I swear, I totally relate to. I did the same thing, the career day presentation. I had my stomach hurt before I talked. I was like, I do
terrified.
this for a living. Like, I couldn't do. I was like, hey kids, like, I was like, why is this so hard? I don't know.
And they all look at you with like they see right through you.
I know.
Right? None of this facade works with them. They look right through you. You're like, all right, well, I can build you a web page, but they were enthralled.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it was like watching a magic trick.
Yeah,
it was really amazing.
Oh, and when you win like coolest parent award, through your kid's eyes, I mean,
I was not expecting that.
Yeah,
it was a nice moment.
That's awesome. Nice. Yeah. So you're obviously pretty passionate. It comes through. And what makes you so passionate about your work?
Oh, that's a good question. And I can tell you that I like to create things. And the idea of being able to create things in a way that can make impact in an organization drives a lot of that passion. So I really got into development because I always wanted to be an artist, but I was not good at drawing. I couldn't paint, and I can doodle, but that's for sure. And what I realized is that using code, I could actually create art in a logical way. And a really cool story is that's how Steve Jobs really brought his organization. He called all of his, whether they're engineers, electrical, mechanical, or developers, they called them all artists. And he would have them sign the inside of their Macintosh. And so you can actually find that because he said this is a work of art, and you guys are artists. And so you don't have to be an artist to create or to feel passion around that. I mean, you can do it with writing code, and I really like that, and I like that analogy, and I like that idea of that we're all artists. And
we paint with a different brush.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
we paint with a different brush.
Yeah, love that. So have you kind of shared this nice story with your daughter in the school? Do you have any advice? It could be career or personal that maybe has stuck with you, or the first thing that comes to mind that you want to share?
I mean, I've got a lot of different kind of things I go to, but one of my first bits of advice I got was to shut up and wear beige. Sometimes you just have to shut up and wear beige, Davie.
Oh my gosh.
And we can also say be quiet and wear beige. I don't know what's the better way to say it.
I mean, it is what it is.
And I was and when I heard that, I thought to myself, shut up and wear beige. What does that even mean? Like, I really had no concept of what that meant. And then I started to realize it means a lot of things, but the way that I interpret that is sometimes you just have to listen, right? You don't always have to be the smartest person in the room. You don't always have to be talking in the room. It's okay to sit there, blend in with your beige, and just shut up, because let people talk. Because if you do your job right, as a leader at least, you hire the people that are smarter than you. You give them a chance to kind of take the stage and take the floor, and you just sit back and you listen, and you incorporate that into your everyday work. At least that's kind of, I don't know if that's the best piece of advice. It's a little bit, it's a little rough around the edges, but I just really like it because it hit home. And I remember when I heard it the first time, I had a similar reaction as you just reacted, Jessica. Yeah. It was like, wow, that really hits you. You want to hear like, just do it or be your best, right?
Right.
It's not like that. It's just shut up and wear beige.
Just shut up.
I like it.
Yep. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I actually have kind of like a beige shirt on right now.
There you
so,
go.
so I'm going to.
But you can't. You actually have to talk. This
Yes.
is your show.
Yes. Things would get real awkward.
Yeah, right. That's great.
Awesome. That's really good. Absolutely. I love that. That's really good. So, as we kind of wrap up here, do you have any recommendations for resources or references? I know you've written a few Forbes articles that we'll link here for anyone
Great.
who maybe just wants to know more or
Yeah.
get into this.
Yes, that's a great place to start. Is those Forbes articles? So that's my shameless plug. No, I think so. Some of the books I always go back to is Good to Great. It's an older book. It's by Jim Collins. I really like that book, and I believe it still holds up well. It uses data to try to come to a conclusion about how to really turn your business from being good to great. So that's one I often go back to, and it talks about how to hire the right people and what a good leader what a good leader is made up of. And another one is Start With Why. So Simon Sinek. I think everyone has seen the short YouTube video clip that he talks about the why in the center. That's always a great one. And I just reread again Blink: The Power of Thinking Without Thinking, Malcolm Gladwell. I just finished it. I just finished listening
really
to it.
interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to check these out.
Yeah, it's very insightful on what the human brain is doing in the first 2 seconds or even half a second, and how we make decisions. It's the power of thinking without thinking. So those are some of the good ones that I like to refer back to.
That's great. Thank you. Well, this has been so good, and thank you so much for taking so much time with us.
Thank you for having me, Jessica. This was a great time.
Thanks for listening to Beyond Bosch Podcast. In case you missed our other episodes, now's your chance. Go back and take a listen.